Hi, everyone. This is Dan Housman. I'm here with the Novel Cohorts podcast with the Graticule team. I'm here with Mitchell Goldburgh from NTT, and we're interested in sharing a dialogue over some podcasts about ways we can create insights off of healthcare data using radiology and related information. We'll probably do a couple of these to dive deep so we can keep your attention. And let's just start with introductions. Mitchell, maybe you can introduce yourself and explain what is NTT Data Services and what are you doing in the real world data business?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. NTT Data Services is a digital business and IT service leader, part of a $109 billion corporation called the NTT Group. We're based out of Plano, Texas, and we help organizations accelerate and sustain value through learning about digital journeys. And in this particular case, my team, we have a service called Advocate AI that's part of the healthcare provider organization, and we team with our life sciences and with Graticule to address the challenges of bringing data from multiple locations into a data cooperative so that people can process and digest that data to gain insights into um, medical imaging and associated reports and EMR data. And we're pretty excited to be working with Graticule.
And this is Dan. To give folks a background on Graticule, we're really founded to help organizations run the types of studies they're interested in with what we call advanced real world data. That means we're focused on the types of studies that require more than just claims information or basic structured EMR. We both do work that looks like a contract research organization where we're doing studies in conjunction with health systems, as well as doing work to try and build out studies with complex data sets like what's available through NTT and Advocate AI, sometimes even linking data together. And we're just super excited to be working with the team at NTT because there's a really rich data source and some great tools on top of it that I think clients will really be interested in. So Mitchell, maybe you can tell me a bit about, how does this data get to you? How big is this data set you're working with? What makes your offering so powerful? Because I know we're excited, but maybe you can talk about what got you excited and what you guys are working on.
Sure. So that actually goes back to a legacy company that was acquired and brought into the NTT family. We started working with medical images and associated reports in hospitals, medical centers, oncology centers way back in 2000. So since that service inception, we've processed well over 450 million imaging studies across thousands of clinical sites. And it's always been a hybrid cloud offering uh, that allowed us to not only facilitate the management of the imaging, but also the exchange of the imaging. And in 2015, we began a journey to help our clients go beyond just enterprise imaging as a service and launched the specific data cooperative service called Advocate AI. And what that does is it allows us to bring not only NTT data clients, but um, people that are interested in accelerating the adoption of intelligent automation and AI for the purposes of solving clinical real world problems. And forming in this cooperative, bringing pharma, AI companies, data science, and real clinical data, real clinical evidence um, to make it actionable, right? So it's a network that continues to grow. And um, when we started with you late last year, we have grown to have over 8 million studies cataloged and available for data mining from multiple locations, all in the US, but our vision is to go beyond the US as Graticule has done and support um, at scale the automation of data curation. Because it's really, that's the secret, right, to advancing artificial intelligence is having access to the data, being able to um, bring together data at scale and ensure that it's de-identified but correlatable to not only the diagnostic imaging reports and the imaging services, but other types of lab data, genomic data, pathology data, and bringing that all together to do the studies that Graticule is being asked to do. So we're really excited.
So maybe I can talk a little bit about what gets us excited about working with your team. First of all, it's hard to find, big data. So people have been talking about big data for a long time, about, a place where you can do research with enough scale, where there's enough content to be able to look at a specific problem. And the fact that you have so many clients and you've done the work to negotiate agreements back to the providers that are willing to participate in this, machine learning development, decision support development, any of the tools and algorithms we can put together so that we can find enough of whatever kind of imaging study we need to build these analytics. It's very helpful. And so, we get excited and we are excited as we've been working with your team that we can find the kind of scale that's necessary to answer hard questions. But that's really just the beginning, because I think for us, that's being able to answer, static data questions, but there's also capabilities and tools built within your infrastructure to make it a lot easier to do the kind of work we're trying to do. And that's within the tools of Aggregate AI to be able to do that curation work so that we can not have to build lots of tools and focus on the studies we want to run, and be able to have, a curation model of imaging studies and annotation tools all integrated with the data itself, which isn't something that's easy to find out there. I'd also say on top of that, the grand vision of all this stuff, hey, we do AI, I think if you were to dig in and ask people, has there been a big ROI to AI? It hasn't emerged completely yet. And in order to get a benefit from being able to make different decisions to improve the workflow of clinical teams, we need a place where there's scale integrated into the health system as well. And so we're really looking forward to some of the future phases of what we can do together, to be able to take algorithms we can build and train and validate inside of retrospective data, and connect up with some of the health systems that Mitchell's team at NTT and Aggregating AI have set up to be able to have an intervention which will impact patients. And I think it's going to be possible because we are connected to a group that's really deeply integrated into the health systems, as well as some of the life sciences companies that are out there looking to do these kinds of things.
That's a really good point, Dan. Not to take you off your talk track, but 70 to 80% of the time and thus cost is associated with curating data and preparing it for all of the science that Graticule provides, right? And our joint customers are providing. What we're trying to do at scale is use intelligent automation to take all of this dirty data and make it harmonious so that it can be integrated and analyzed. And one of the interesting projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, is understanding what we've discovered, that sometimes there's data missing from the reports that's extractable from the images themselves, which creates a stronger data set for some of your clients to explore their ideas.
Yeah, and I'd say, looking into the projects we've been working on together, because we have done a number of these studies so far. I'll give an example, which was, it's often important to obtain measurements of different organ systems to see if a disease is progressing, and especially if it's progressing rapidly, which means that it's more important to do an intervention, whether it's total kidney volume, it's tumor growth, it's changes in cardiac tissue. And what we found is by working with a scale set of images, we can find a whole lot of data that can be automatically pulled out of radiology reports, which have already put in those measurements of the volumetric dimensions of organs over time, which give a strong indication of progression. But if we dive all the way into the images themselves, often those measurements have been embedded in the image, and there's more measurements and more information
Exactly
directly in those images. that
Yep.
aren't stored in the text reports. And so depending upon the level of value that can be gleaned from building out the NLP, OCR, maybe even full AI to make the measurements directly on the image, we can really get to at scale understanding, in this case, progression, which is a pretty critical piece for understanding, who really needs to be treated or not treated with a drug. If the folks you're looking for are the ones that are rapidly progressing, or maybe looking at whether or not they're benefiting from a treatment to see if we're stopping progression or reversing it. So, it's great to have all of the capabilities and the tools. And I think we're going to see that there's a lot of value just in measuring things in radiology that's never been done before at scale.
That's a great point. And it's oncology, it's radiology. Our vision is to go into dermatology and other areas. But 2 points that you made, I just want to expand upon quickly. One is the ROI of artificial intelligence doesn't come from simply the detection and measurement. As you pointed out, it's taking action on those measurements to intervene to either early detect and therefore reduce the level of intervention, or ensure through precision medicine that the intervention that you're providing is effective. So that's really where the ROI from AI comes from. And I think you also mentioned, being that we have all sorts of imaging in our portfolio, and it's growing, right? If you look at the needs for de-identification at scale, that's one of the tools that comes with the Advocate AI, but also it's identifying the measurements that may be in a screen capture for an ultrasound that we can extract that weren't in the report. So we've learned a lot in working through the projects that you've been bringing to the team, and we're really excited to then help customers, especially with early adoption, marry opportunities where they participate in Advocate AI to link them up with perhaps some of your customers who are interested in piloting their ideas. So it's really a community that Advocate AI fosters through the data cooperative, not just a data repository.
Yeah, and I'd say, on our side, now that we've done some of these projects, we're learning how to build tools that make the process much faster, as well as to find tools that can, in a less directed way, instead of picking a certain organ to get the measurements, for example, looking across all measurements in the whole system to see where there might be critical mass that could support, known drugs, known diseases that could be improving patient care if we just developed out some of those measurements. So I think working together, we can rapidly evaluate the feasibility of using radiomics, radiology, however we want to look at it, as a tool. And there's so many things we can do going forwards to build off of what's already been done so far by doing things like linking data, working more closely with the health systems to do the translation and validation piece prospectively, that that we're really at such an early stage and haven't seen the full value, but I think we will in the next few years.
And we're looking forward to working with you to uncover those opportunities, and even through the sites that are participating in the questions they're asking about what's inside their data. It's clear that not only can pharma and AI companies benefit from the data, but the providers are benefiting as well.
Yeah, and in the end, I think the big give back is to the providers and the patients, which is, if we do lots of research on the data, we're doing it because there's something out there that could give patients a better experience, better treatment, better options. And, as we make these tools out, they can be made completely free because we just publish papers and say, just use this variable this way, or they can become, commercial diagnostics or commercial tools that can be used, in the context of, validated treatment patterns. So, we're
Hmm.
excited to get to that. We're still pretty early in the journey on that, but I think, we're in this business, at least at Graticule, and I think it's also true from the Advocate AI team, to have an impact on patient care. So, it's pretty close to our mission if we can get um, all the work we're doing to the point of care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Great.
thanks, Dan, for thanks for pulling this together and letting us introduce ourselves as a team. And I look forward to the next podcast to explore more, perhaps with some of our other partners.
Yeah, maybe we can dive into oncology or some specific fields that have
Exactly.
interest these days in real world data, and you know that'll be a fun conversation if we can talk about some other topics that are a little deeper. But thanks so much,
Exactly.
and looking forward
Sure.
to it again.
Indeed. Have a
All right.
good day.
Bye.